Firstly, we're going to start off with improving outcomes for black people in product and tech. And I need everyone in here to give a massive warm welcome and round of applause for Renee Hunt.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wow, what a great event. I was saying to a friend that about 5 years ago, I went to the Afrotech Fest. Did anybody go to Afrotech Fest in Shoreditch? I learned something. So I've been in the technology business for about 35 years, and I can tell you two things about my personality. A, I am not shy, and B, I hate those conferences. Like, I hate them. And when I went to Afrotech Fest, I realized that it wasn't the technology conference I didn't like. So it just felt so different to be in a room full of people where I was in no way exceptional. Like, in no way, and the food was much better. Equally, for a technology conference, which was so exciting to see, was they probably had as many, if not more, women speakers as men. And I'm like, why do mainstream technology conferences have this problem? I don't understand, but it was so lovely to see. So, thanks everybody. As you can see folks getting settled, I promise this has a point. My name is Renee Hunt. I am the Chief Technology Officer at Compare the Market. Compare the Market is the one with the meerkats. We are the leading price comparison website in the United Kingdom. I want to talk to you a little bit about sort of my journey and working in at Compare the Market in financial services. I want to leave you with some information about what's going on in the world, because I'm sure we're all very clear about what's going on in the world. And then I'm going to ask for your help, because I absolutely 100% need your help. So, who am I? My name is Renee Hunt. As you can tell by this accent, I wasn't born and raised here. But in 2 weeks, I celebrate my 25th year in the United Kingdom, which means that I've spent more of my working life in the UK than I did back in the States. I've worked in the technology industry for about 36 years. I've always worked in tech. I chose to work in tech because I figured out quite young, as a black person, that it would probably be good to be in an industry where the quality of what I did was binary, meaning either it worked or it didn't. And the nice thing about working in tech is there's a real bias towards people who can make it work. That's awesome, right? So I thought, that'll suit me just fine. I actually find it quite fascinating. I enjoy solving problems. I enjoy being frustrated out of my mind most of the time. Yeah, that's a smile. You work in tech. I enjoy the types of people who work in the industry. So I've worked in tech for about 36 years across a lot of different dimensions, a lot of different industries. But I was pretty clear early on that my future was going to stay in cool things like telecom and media, and that financial services was pretty evil. And so why did I think that? Why did I just not? Well, one, movies. Two, grew up in a working class family where I watched my parents play the game with the bills at the end of the month, where it's like, okay, which bills can we pay? Which bills can we not pay? These we're going to just ignore for a month. These we're going to send back with no check. These we can do next month. And it was like a little corkboard in our house, right? And I see some rare smiles about that. And I mean, we weren't poor. We were just working people getting by. Right? My dad was a photography studio owner. My mom sold Avon. She then went on to get into management at Avon, like normal people. I'll tell you a joke. So I'm the CTO of a large price comparison company, but like most black families, I'm officially the other one because my sister's a doctor. So she's a professor. It took time, but I was like, thank God. I want a cup that says the other one. I want a T-shirt that says the other one. It's fine. So, but like I'm saying, normal family. So I saw a weird relationship with money growing up. And it wasn't until I got married, and I've been married twice, so I'm going to be really sharing everything. But my first husband's family, also black, came from a different place. So they had a much more comfortable relationship with money. You know, they had savings. I was like, what's that? They had investments, you know, and he taught me a lot about money. And his father taught me a lot about money. He also taught me a lot about business as part of the reason why I'm here today. Right? But it was that intervention was probably my first education in money. And the more I learn about our community, we don't really get those lessons. I mean, unless you come from a very different kind of family, and if you do, please, I want to hear that story too. But me coming up, my cousins, my friends, we didn't talk about money. We didn't have a relationship with money. We certainly didn't have education about money and how money works. And then when I went to work in industry, I was not impressed by what I saw in financial services. I was equally not impressed with what I saw in a lot of non-financial services companies where the practices that happened, like how did you get credit to buy a certain good? I used to work with systems for which the one determiner about whether or not you would get credit or not was your post code. Think about that, right? How could that be discriminatory in any way, shape, or form? Your post code, right? And little old me, I'd go, huh? Yeah, that's how it's done, right? Some of you will have seen the article that came out in 2018 about a person who found out that if they changed their name from Muhammad to John, everybody's shaking their head, their insurance quote went down. Right? And it's practices like this that can happen where industries are shrouded in mystery and behind closed doors that disadvantage people. And too often disadvantage people of color. Right? So I don't want to do anything with financial services. It's evil. LIBOR, right? PPI. We have evidence of that this industry is not stacked to benefit people of any color. So why am I sitting here working for a financial services company? Right? Two things happen. One, I found one that has an actual purpose and found one that actually doesn't make any money unless it saves people money. So I was like, okay, that sounds awesome because I have a rule. I'm fortunate. I'm at the twilight of my career. I have made my reputation. I can choose who I want to work for, right? I can choose. I even have some of those things called savings. It's incredible. You should look into that, right? So I can choose who I want to work for. And for me, I want to work for a place that has impact, right? So I worked at Sky, fantastic company. They're here today. Don't work for them. Work for me instead, right? I work for Sky. Patience works for Sky. Amazing woman. But I wanted to work for Sky because it was a company where I could have impact, right? Where I could work on news and sports, work with lots of people at the start of their career, help raise them, help train them to be really, really good at being engineers, but most importantly, being good at being leaders. Because we need leaders coming from technology if we're going to change anything about these systems. Yeah? And I was happy, right? I was like 5 years away from retiring. I was pretty comfortable. I had managed all my relationships. I was like, yeah, this is good. My team were cool. Everything was good. I'll be honest, I was a bit bored. But I was happy. And I got this phone call from an old boss, a sponsor. Have sponsors. Have sponsors, have mentors. And he said, come help me. I said, financial services. What I actually said was insurance in Peterborough. That's not happening. No. And he said, have a look. And here's what I learned. I learned about a company, as I said, whose only way to make money is to save people money. You're not going to do business with me or anybody else's price comparison unless we save money. When I dug a little bit deeper, here's the big purpose. When you have the ability to take these types of deals out of offices, right? You used to have to go to a broker. You go to a broker, they'd open their big book of who they had relationships with and what deals they might have, and then they would offer you a price for this, that, or whatever, right? Or you might see an ad on TV and call Direct Line or Sheila's Wheels or any of this other garbage and say, that sounds good, what's the best price? And those prices are highly arbitrary when they're done that way. And what businesses like ours do, is we bring real transparency as to what's going on. I tell you right now, right, the article about that comparison, the person who found out that his name changed, the thing could not happen without industries that bring transparency to what's going on. I can get behind that. So let's talk about what's going on right now in the world. This is the depressing part. I'm sorry if this triggers anybody, but we got to talk about facts, right? I need my notes because I'm old. I was listening to the news as I was getting dressed, and yet there's another one. So how many of you are aware that in October, the government has changed the regulation for broadband providers, right? So the source providers of broadband had a cap on how much they could charge the sellers after that. Did you know that? I didn't know that. I worked in that industry and I didn't know that. There was a cap. That cap comes to an end at the end of October. So that means that's going to go up too, right? And unlike energy and unlike insurance, they can change the price in the middle of your contract. Hello, right? So the cap's going up, right? Nothing about their cost of delivery has gone up, but the cap's going to come off, and they can, say the word with me now, arbitrarily decide to charge you more money. Sunshine and light, transparency, we need that. We trade and compare broadband. If anybody's interested, you might want to have a look. CompareTheMarket.com. Use the .com so we don't have to pay Google, please. So let's talk about what's going up. Consumer prices are up 10.1%. That's just a fact. Up. Everything. Everything in your shopping basket is up 10.1%. Gas in the UK is up 96%. That's after the cap, folks. And the cap is not a cap. That's just an average cap. Be aware. Electricity is up 54%. I'll tell you the truth. I have a property in France, and my French electricity went up how much? 4%. 4%. And they sent me a note to apologize. These are choices. Okay? 89% of Britons have reported they feel a rise in their cost of living. That's 90% of us. That includes some rather rich people. 90%. This was my house. 12.8 million households in the UK have less than £1,500 in savings. But yet, a similar percentage of households have more than £2,200 in credit card debt. And before we get all judgy about that, people are using credit cards to pay their electric bill, to pay the Waitrose, or let's be honest, the Lidl, right? We sponsored a Money Action survey. And this is the one that gets me because this is the one we can help. The Money Action survey said 6 in 10 households are worried about their financial future, but are doing nothing to bolster their finances. All right, that's the depressing part over. Get to the point, Renee. Why do we care? Why is it relevant for this audience here? This is Black Tech Fest. I work in technology to solve problems. That's what the thing that does it for me, right? But equally, as I get older in life, I've covered my gray hair, so you can't see that I'm gray, but I am gray. I'm 57. This is what 57 looks like when you're black. As I enter the end of my life, it's really important that it had a point and that we can make some impact. I know that my company and companies like mine, but especially mine because we're really good at it and we have most of the market, can save most households about £1,000 if they switch every year. So my first call to action to all of you, you got something that can be switched. Make sure you switch at the end of the term of any contract you're on. If you're out of contract, go look up anybody's product, but especially mine, because, you know, I get paid when you look up my project. But look up and find better prices. You will find better prices. Get your mothers, your uncles, your aunties, and all the folks we can find in our community, because this is your money. It's yours. It's already there, and we can save £1,000. That £1,000 means that £1,500 in savings goes to £2,500 in savings, which is more than the credit card debt. This is important. So let's make sure, number one, each of you take away, I'm going to go home, I'm going to check CompareTheMarket.com, or somebody else. Opera singers, like really. You're going to check CompareTheMarket.com, cute little furry meerkats, and you're going to try to find the opportunity to save, especially your broadband, especially because that's going up at the end of the month. Your broadband, number one. Number two, The second takeaway is I want y'all to consider jobs in financial services. All of you. Please don't take my example that it's all evil. It's evil. But it will be less evil when we have people with different lived experiences making decisions about how our systems work. And with machine learning and AI, these ideas are getting written into code. And if you want to screw up anything at pace and with scale, write it into code. Am I clear? Like, honestly, watch that mistake perpetrate forever. Write it into code. So I have a secret plan. I want y'all writing things into code, right? I want you to help me write a fairer system. And the way we write a fairer system is we have people who go, do you realize that the only reason we're giving somebody a discount or a this or a that is postcode? Like, wouldn't that be kind of weird? And does that match our company values? We do not do that at Compare the Market, just so we're clear. For those of you who came and laughed and said, Compare the Market's doing, we do not, I work there, we don't do that. So that these decisions that get made have the influence of our lived experiences over the top of them, right? So that's a big ask. That's a massive ask. Because I don't know what you plan to do with your career. There's some sexy companies here, right? Like Deliveroo. Who doesn't love Deliveroo? And yes, you can make this country and the world safe for better takeout choices brought to your door. But I'm really on a mission that has some impact, right? And it's really about making financial decision-making a breeze for everyone. And the way we do that is throw sunshine and light over everything that's going on so that stuff like that can't happen in closets and back rooms and LIBORs and all the rest of it anymore. And I think that's enough from me. I think that was all I wanted to say. I think I said 3 things. I have ADHD, and I can't ever manage 3, 2. I have 2 things, and then I say 3. I have 4 things, I say 2. We talked about being financially literate. We talked about switching your products. Please do that. Like, if you don't do anything else, please just do that. That's like money on the floor. If it was 1,000 pounds in the street, you wouldn't step over it, right? Like, I wouldn't. So please do that. And then please lend your skills to our industry. And I'd love it, if y'all would come and join us. We have, at last count, about 50 open tech roles across the organization. We have open roles in product as well. And I would love, love, love to be less exceptional where I work. You hear me, right? So that would be awesome. Peterborough is great, by the way. It's like fab. It's full of black people. Did you know that? You do, right? Like, I found that shocking because that's not what I thought. See, we all have our ideas. That's it. I'm going to take questions from the audience. We're going to need to get mics around, so can we do that? Questions. Y'all be kind to me now. Be kind. Oh, come on. I know we're not shy. I've come to the front of the stage to be approachable. Hello, sir. Tell me your name. Oh, I can't hear you at all. Is it on? I'll go over. See, look how informal we are. Woo, stepping down. Look how short I am.
Testing.
Oh.
You can use my map.
Kevin. All right, excellent.
Renee,
I'm
you can
going
go
to do
back on
my,
the stage.
no, I'm going to do my, like,
You gonna stay
Oprah
there? Okay.
or Phil Donahue. That's like a proper American reference. Hello, sir. Hi, Kevin. How are you doing?
Hi, nice to meet you, Renee. Big fan, by the way.
Thank you.
My question is, how do we get more black people into positions of power so we can be in the rooms to make these decisions?
Yeah, that's a really good question. How can we get more black people into positions of power so we can be in the rooms when the decisions are made? So 2 answers to that. 1, we got to stay in it. We got to stay in the game long enough to actually be considered. Now, I dropped out. I completely dropped out of this game about 15 years ago. Said, nope. Y'all do your thing. I'm going to do my thing and get paid. And I ran my own company, and I did that to do my own thing and get paid. And I had no interest in corporate nonsense. And then about 7 years ago, I sat in a room full of young black professionals, and everybody looked at me like I was a unicorn because I'd never met a senior leader in a business, like a commercial business. And I thought, oh, that's fucking wrong. Like, no. And when I came up in the 80s, there were black women that were my bosses and my leaders. Now, granted, that was an ocean away, but I just, moving here with my own bias, just thought there weren't a lot of black people in London. I honestly thought that. So we need to stay in the game. That's number one, right? Many of you look quite young. You need to stay in the game. You have to deal with the microaggressions. You have to deal with the macroaggressions. You just have to be fucking excellent. Take all the bias away by being so good at what you do that they have no choice, right? People didn't pick me to do these big jobs because they liked me. They picked me because it was better than them getting sacked for the thing not getting done, right? So you have to stay in the game. That's number one. Number two is you don't have to be in the big rooms to have influence. You have influence in the rooms you're in, right? Find your voice, use it. Share your story. This is probably the most inclusive generation, and I'm talking about younger people because y'all have grown up with everything, right? People want to hear your authentic story. Share it. Explain why you think that's a bad idea, especially those of you who are esthets. You just call it a bug. You see this thing here that's rejecting people because of postcode? That looks like a bug. Maybe we should go and then just be dumb and ask why. Why? Why? Let them say it out loud. I had somebody challenge me dyeing my hair blonde at work. And I'm like looking around a room of PAs with blonde hair who weren't born with it and going, are we gonna have a rule now that you can't dye your hair a color that you weren't born with? Because you're gonna have to talk to your PA. Like, call that shit out, right? So you don't have to just be in the big rooms, get practice calling it out in the small rooms, but you have to stay in the game. And I know it's hard because it was bloomin' hard in the 80s and it was bloomin' hard in the UK in the 90s and the noughties. Right? It's hopefully getting less hard, and it gets less hard the more we stay in the game. Great question. Anybody else? Hello. Tell us your name.
Hi, my name's Effia.
Effia, lovely to meet you.
Thank you, nice to meet you. My question is, how do you manage your mental well-being in tech?
So there's two answers. I always have two answers. Two answers. One, the part of the tech that is just because it's frustrating and hard and difficult to solve problems, I actually find that quite stimulating and wonderful. And then there's the culture. One, work for a place with a better culture, right? Like, psychological safety is real. I have found that out most recently, right? It is a real thing. So seek out places and use things like Glassdoor, use the networks like this to find out what's it like to work there, right? How does it feel? I used to think that tech people were just genuinely miserable. And so when we would do these people surveys, right, they would all come back like tech drag. And get ready, patience, because I'm going to tell you the truth. I can show you the numbers because you won't believe it. We just did a people survey at Compare the Market, and I am absolutely flipping bragging on this one. The tech scores outperformed the company-wide score by 4 points. And we had higher than the company average on every question, save one, where that was down by one behind. Now, if you don't think I'm gonna walk into the CEO's office and go, keep up, because I've never seen it. In 36 years, I've never seen it, right? So culture matters. And if you are finding that your mental health is struggling, not because the job is hard, but because the conditions around you make it even harder, change management. Great question, thank you. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm a big fan as
Hi,
well.
Jasmine.
So my question is, because you've had so much experience, how do you stay innovative as you kind of like build your career? Because obviously I assume most of us will want to be here for a long time, but what I find is like the longer or the more experience people have, the more they just like say, we've always done it that way.
Ooh.
So like, how do you keep like your mind like receptive to
Sure.
ideas and innovation?
I'm having one of those right now because I'm having a philosophical debate with some of my colleagues about work hours and flexibility and remote, and the fact that that genie is well and truly out of the bottle and it's not up to us anymore. How do I do it personally? I think I have that kind of mind where being black and female, the way we've always done it hasn't always benefited me. So being innovative helps to differentiate yourself, to help other people think differently about problems. I think it's a big part of what we bring to the diversity discussion and the inclusion discussion. It's not just to make the picture look good. You need people who approach problems differently, who's had different lived experiences. How do I stay it? I do a stupid amount of podcast listening. And a friend of mine, this amazing man, he was absolutely brilliant, never went to uni, he's always the smartest guy in the room. And he was having an argument with somebody who was being particularly obstinate. And he said, when I'm presented with new information, I change my mind. What do you do? And it really landed with me, the importance to keep an open mind. And I also really have a bias towards younger people. And then trying really hard not to fall into that old lady thing of just assuming they're wrong, right? Like they say, oh, Gen Z, they don't want to work at all. And I'm like, but are they wrong? Like look at all the advancements we've got from technology and we still have to work 5 days a week? Like, why? Where did all that productivity go, right? So I'm starting to question things. I listen to a lot of different voices. I even listen to voices I don't agree with because that helps me keep an open mind, right? And the way we always did it is poison. It's not progressive. And for the world to be a better place, it needs to be a hell of a lot more progressive for everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine. Ooh, Luke. Hello, sir.
Yo, the
I
hands are
like
popping up.
I
I love
like
it,
the
I love it.
gentleman with the dreads. I had dreads for many years. My mom said, "You never get another job." I was like, "Yeah." I took my business like up with dreadlocks. Hello, sir. Hi, Farah.
Good morning. My name is Farah.
Hi, Farah.
I wanted to take the opportunity because you mentioned about the broadband. And so I worked at BT for a number of years. And I agree with you on the point of obviously looking for a cheaper deal, and how you spoke about the levy that they're putting onto the broadband, for example. And I had a bit of an insight as to like why that was happening, for example. But on the subject of like looking for cheaper prices, I just wanted to say, just from an experience of being an engineer, just to tell everyone just to be careful.
Yes.
I agree with obviously like, yes, we're looking for cheaper prices because, just the current situation of the market, for example. But there are definitely some people to stay away from.
Yes, service matters, quality matters.
Exactly, and I guess that's just what I wanted to kind of like voice out and just not sit here and just
Thank
that
you.
experience and not say anything because, just with like different service providers, for example. So say like BT, so they're going to be increasing their prices because they're actually trying to give you a better quality of service, for like partnering with like people like EE, for example. So they're putting out things like just trying to keep you online 24/7. So as an example, say you go with one company that they are cheaper. If they don't keep you in service for like an X period of time, they'll put in your contract, obviously to make sure everyone put in your contract. You literally won't pay for the next 30 days, for example. So as well as people looking for cheaper deals, for example, obviously just make sure that in your contract you have little things that says if you're going to be out of service for a period of time, they're either going to reimburse you, for example, or they're going to obviously just get you some kit to get you back online,
Right.
for example. So I just thought I might just share that insight.
Farah, thank you so much. And it's important that we are educated in our decision making. And it's almost like I put you in as a plug because the other thing that price comparison does is allows you to see all the terms side by side, right? And this is something going on in car insurance. I need to make sure you're aware. So car insurance, there was a bit of legislation that happened a couple of years ago, which meant that we can no longer offer people who are new to a market a cheaper price than you offer your existing customer. That sounds great, doesn't it? That's a great piece of legislation, except it gives a bias towards people who can afford not to switch. That's true, right? But that's okay, there's still savings to be had. But see, so insurance companies have been taking advantage of that for a bit. Let's not say taking advantage of it. Insurance companies are our partners, and they're doing the best they can. But as an educated consumer, you need to be paying attention because they're now having to find new and interesting ways to take policies for which it now costs them more to fix or insure a car that's had an issue than the average gain that they have from a year-long policy. That means, guess what? Prices are going up. They're gonna go up. Fantastic, switch. Make sure though that when they come back and say, hey, we're gonna give you this deal to stay, that it's the same. Do I need change? Yeah. How much time do I have? Am I okay? All right, so, because I will keep going. It's like a Baptist minister. I take this watch off so we can stay here all day. So one of the things that they do, be careful, how many of you know how much it would cost? Who here has a car? Oh, y'all in London with cars. That's amazing. I have a car too. It took me 15 years to finally start driving in this country, but I got there. So I have a car, and if you get a chip in your windscreen, that's covered by like 99.9% of policies. Do you know how much it costs to repair a windscreen if it's not covered? Anybody? Who thinks 50 pounds? Who thinks 100 pounds? Who thinks 200 pounds? Who thinks 300 pounds? It can cost 300 pounds or more to repair your windscreen if it's not covered by your insurance. That is worth checking out before you look and compare prices and go, oh, that looks cheap, right? Check. Use the tools that the comparison websites, especially comparethemarket.com. I'm going to get that in. I love how you plug BT. See, I love when we talk for our companies, right? Like, you should be the best salesperson in your company regardless of who you work for. And if you don't want to sell your company, work somewhere else. So, but yes, comparethemarket.com. It allows you to look at all of the things side by side. Sunshine and light is the best disinfectant. Fantastic, Farah. That's a very good point, right? We've got to be careful that when we're looking to switch, that whatever we value about that service is still covered or is still included in the price that you're paying. Fantastic point. Anybody else?
There's a few people actually. We've got time
I'm
though.
gonna let you be in charge.
We've got time. No, that's all right. I remember you.
Thanks. Hi, my name's Georgina. I'm wondering whether you feel similarly to that I do, which is that as a woman in leadership within a business, there's an extraordinary amount of emotional labor that your colleagues will put on you because you're a woman.
Just don't do it.
Yeah. Like, I'm the only woman in the management team of my company.
Wow.
Which is really cool and amazing. But I do feel like there is an emotional labor to that. And if
Can you give me an example of what you mean by emotional labor? I think I know what you mean, but for men or other people who don't know what it means, sorry, boys, but just in case we know, right?
So, for example, if somebody in the company is having some sort of emotional problem, I will be sent to go talk to them. Now, my job includes HR. So
I was
that
going to say, are you in HR?
So it's appropriate. I'm head of operations. That's great and all. But in times where it's not particularly work appropriate, that somebody HR needs to go in, it could be anybody. It tends to be me. Or if it's somebody's birthday, oh, you're going to pick out the present. Or,
No,
we're going to go out for lunch, so you need to pick somewhere. Like, anything that's not actually in your job description, but is some sort of like emotional or like, you just need somebody to make a good decision that's going to make everybody happy, tends to fall on the woman. Do you find that?
Absolutely, and it was worse in the 80s and the 90s, like take the notes, go buy the baby shower gift, do all the, clean up the cups. If I catch any of you cleaning up the cups after a meeting and it isn't your turn to, I'm going to personally come and give you a smack. Like, do not do this, right? Don't do it, because it just changes the dynamic of you as a leader in the room. Right, so one way to do it so that you're not evil is to suggest that you have a rotor and say, let's get all the leadership team on a rotor, and so when it's in the month of October, you're in charge of getting all the baby shower gifts, blah, 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 blah. What it does is it teaches people who have never done that emotional labor that it's work. It might make a really good business case for hiring more PAs, because that's kind of the job that they're supposed to do, and if they're not doing it, I'd be raising my eyebrow. It's also worth noting the cost of you doing that versus the cost of somebody more junior, right? So don't do it. I think we also need our men and other allies in the room to not to recognize when that's happening and call that out. And I'm not putting it on all the men here, right? We're talking about white men. We're talking about other senior leaders to call that stuff out, right? So they need to become more aware of it. There's a great woman, her name, remember I told you I podcast like crazy. Her name is Kara Lowenthal. She's an American Jewish lady. She does like mind coaching and thought work, and I listen to her podcast all the time, and she's got an episode on this, and it's about all the extra labor that women and women of color especially take on in life, and how that, you know, that makes it much harder for us to have the bandwidth to do anything else. So please stop doing that. Although in HR, I was going to say, if you're in HR, it's maybe part of the job description, but I'm sure you have a team, right? So also, too, people will ask us to do things. If you have a team, that's a fantastic opportunity for that team to contribute, right? Don't assume that somebody asks you, especially in a leadership position, if you're a senior engineer or whatever, is there an opportunity where you can mentor or coach somebody so that they can learn to do some of that? Right, and so that they can have some face time, even if it is go get the baby shower gift. Oh, as if I'd be getting scotch and saying, "What? This is not an appropriate baby shower gift." Or you know, but no, please just find, you know, ground yourself and say no. Thank you. I think somebody else, or you know what? I think actually you have a better relationship with them. Why don't you go talk them off the ledge? All right. Cool. Other questions? This is fun. This is the best part. Hello.
Hey, Renee. Thank you for sharing your story. My name is Adrian.
Hi, Adrian.
And,
nice to meet you.
I wrote my question down because...
Good.
So you mentioned that your foray into entrepreneurship basically took you out of a room. You did it to make more money, but you found that coming back to competitive market enabled you to...
Well, I went back to Sky, but yeah.
To Sky, okay.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is, do you think that maybe entrepreneurship could enable us to create better spaces that are more inclusive? And do you think that maybe having to force or maintain or to stay in corporate might be a financial sacrifice that we might not have the privilege to make at this point in time as we're growing as a community?
There's so many levels to that question, so thank you, Adrian. That's a great question. I think it's all about the motivation, right? Like, I had enough of the nonsense. And I decided, and not the nonsense that was just racial or the patriarchy, but the nonsense of the whole corporate climb and the arbitrariness of it, and the whole, like, having to have somebody give me feedback that I didn't respect, and then I didn't see them necessarily knocking it out the park, like all of it. I just was like, I'm done. And I made a personal decision that said, I am good at doing X, and I only want to do X. I'm uninterested in being promoted. And this is really relevant because I did that so much that I painted a narrative in my head that almost took me out of the best job I ever had, right? So on one level, I think it's about your motives. I am a big believer in entrepreneurship. You know, part of the reason why I think I get to be here today is because I had a great grandmother who started a business at 64. Started a business that she ran successfully until she was in her 70s at 64. So to me, that was normal, right? My dad started a business, right? So there's entrepreneurship all throughout our families, right? And it is a big leveler for people of color and for first generation and second generation people. Honey, I'm 8 generations and we still needed the leveler. So I'm not against entrepreneurship, and I think it's important, and especially if you have a great idea. Last week I was at BYP conference. Who was at the BYP conference? Kike on a wind day. Oh my goodness.
You missed out.
No. Next year, make sure you are there, and it's online as well. So Kike on a wind day was a Sky Tech scholar, which meant that Sky invested a small amount of money and a lot of people's time and energy into helping her get her business up and running. And they had the weird idea that somehow I was going to mentor her. I spent 5 minutes with her, and I said, maybe we should do this the other way around. She is a force of nature. So absolutely, and so she's built a business that is getting her recognized, getting her sponsorship to create community amongst Black young professionals. Like, I am here for that. So definitely entrepreneurship. I think the second half of the question is about being able to afford to stay in corporate America?
Yeah.
Or corporate UK or corporate EU?
Yeah, it's just a sacrifice between, like, the comparison between having your own thing, like it could be contracting, it could be entrepreneurship, it could be freelancing, versus staying to enable and create more spaces for other people to climb up.
Don't do it out of, like, don't sacrifice so when I left, and this is important, right? So I'm going to pretend my colleague's not here. But when I left my business to join Sky, I had done a lot of work for Sky. They knew me. I was a known entity. I did not leave to make less money than I could make in my own business, right? I left because it was a good financial decision to take their job, right? So there is no reason whatsoever that you should leave a company that's making you money to join a company where you can be a servant, or you can help the people. You can help the people and make money, right? And when I left Sky and took my job with Compare the Market, I made it very clear that I don't make bad financial decision making. So you shouldn't, 5 minutes? 5 minutes, awesome. So that shouldn't be a trade-off. It might be a trade-off the other way around, but you should make a business case that says how fast you're going to get a return on the investment of starting your own business, right? Business case, your life. Do not stay with some job, no matter how much you love it, out of loyalty. Get paid well, because it's a business decision, right? Oh, you can come work here, it'll be great, and you can make less. No. Right? Unless you're doing it because, like, a friend of mine took a job to teach, what was it? It was like how to do medical documentaries in Africa. So yeah, she made less money than when she worked at the Beeb, right? But that was like highly purpose-led, and that was her choice, right? Meanwhile, it came with all these perks, which meant she didn't have any cost of living. So, balance that out. So please, no, it should never be a trade-off.
Appreciate that. Who's next?
We have 5 minutes, so this is probably going to be the last one. Sir, in the back. We got a gentleman at the wall. Ooh, everybody. Please come and look at our website, the QR code. Now, as a CTO responsible for cyber, this would scare the shit out of me, but this is okay, it's fine, there's nothing weird on it. If you see a QR code on TV, don't put your phone over it. But that QR code is fine. That's our link to our jobs page, and like I said, I would love to have more of y'all come work for us and come work with me and help me do this important work. Question, sir.
Yeah.
First, your name.
Yeah, my name is Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
I've recently started a social enterprise.
Fantastic.
And it's around delivering digital skills training programs. So one question I had for you then, so what are the main traits that people need to be successful in this industry?
Wow. Thank you. Curiosity. So being curious. Resilience, because you need to be resilient because software is like brutal. It doesn't care how many tears you cry. There's only one way it's going to work, and you need to find that work. So I always look for people who like to do puzzles, people who enjoy mysteries, because there's a curiosity and an itch to know how it ends, right? So those are good. It helps if you're logical, but it equally helps if you're creative. I had a professor say to me when I went to night school to learn to code, and he looked at my code and he went, Does it compile? Yes, back in the day, you had to compile code by giving it to somebody, and they'd run it overnight, and you'd find out it broke on line 2. And I'd go, and he'd go, is it efficient? Yeah, that's how it worked. Sometimes it was on cards. I could tell that story again. Is it efficient? And I'd go, so it does help to be creative, but equally to be a bit logical. So I think those are the big ones I look for. So in my past role, we had a great sort of weird experiment that we did. It wasn't meant to be an experiment, but my principal engineer, who's now my newest director of engineering at Compare the Market, then he looked at the job description for a job we were struggling to hire people. Just couldn't get anybody with the skills to come and apply, never mind anybody else. He looked at the job description, got really angry, because he's like, I'm the smartest guy in the room, and I wouldn't get this job based on these requirements that are irrelevant. So he scratched out a bunch of stuff, and he goes, I don't even care if they've ever programmed it in this language. I want to know how their brain works. So in doing so, we filled 6 roles. Funny thing about the 6 roles we filled, the majority of the people we filled them with drum roll, were from Global Majority. Don't you love that phrase? I use that phrase all the time. From the Global Majority and women. And we hadn't seen them before. They had never applied, right? So the key things there were looking for, how does your brain work? How do you figure stuff out? Can you explain what you did? That's what I'm looking for.
One more question as well.
Sure.
So in terms of like women in tech, what's a good way to recruit them or to help encourage them to get into the industry?
I'm running out of time, so I'll say one last thing. Those of you in the room who have never seen Hidden Figures, go stream Hidden Figures, because it tells the truth about women in tech. It is not an anathema for women to be in tech. We invented tech. Look at your history about women in tech, and all of the narrative about, oh, girls don't want to do it, and their brains don't really work like that is utter bullshit, right? The original people running technology, programming computers, writing the languages, inventing the idea for a computer language, Ada Lovelace, Lord Byron's daughter, right? We're women, because men can't type. Like, just think about it. And they were at the war anyway, right? So one of the ways we get women involved in tech is to make them not think it's weird. It's not weird, right? And then we should insist on it. If you have children, insist on it from baby in school. If you don't, there's fantastic, what is it called? Miro? I'll look it up and I'll put it on my LinkedIn for anybody. Anybody who wants to LinkedIn with me, just say you met me here. Otherwise, I'll be like, no, right? But I'll put on my LinkedIn, there's some fantastic free tools for children to learn to code, and that's gonna become a life skill, right? So yeah, definitely. It's not weird. It's completely normal. Like my old bosses back in the 80s were women. We just kicked them out. Thank you, everybody, for your time. We're out of time. Thank you. What are you going to do when you leave?
Follow you on LinkedIn?
No, yes, but more important, go check your products, comparativemarket.com, and switch every year.
Can we give another round of applause for Renee Hunt, please, man?
Thank you.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you, Renee, for your time today.